Hi, I'm Ken Lammers. Welcome to Minor League Matters. And today we're going to talk about some of the problems that soccer has had in getting traction in the United States. Primarily the fact that the odds are your team won't be a winning team. So let's get cracking. Okay, so right now has been a fun time to watch soccer in the United States. The National Women's Soccer League just had its playoffs and championships, which was fun to watch. The USL has just started its playoff series. I just spent this weekend going up to Louisville to watch the Lou City play against Bethlehem Steel and beat them 4-0, which was fun. Go back next year, or next week, the plan is to watch Lou City play the Rochester Rhinos, which should, again, hopefully be fun. So, what's making this fun? Well, the same thing that kind of makes things like the Champions League fun, right? Because there's going to be a winner. So, yeah, in early league play in the Champions League and that sort of thing, you might get round robin type of things, but in the end, it breaks down to, mano a mano, one-on-one, win or die games, right? And that makes it exciting. This is why the Champions League is the most important, most watched, most enjoyed league in Europe. As well, the same sort of thing goes on with World Cup. You get a lot of one and dones after some early play-ins, which, God willing, your team is able to play in. But you're going to end up with games that teams have to win, right? So in the regular leagues, though, it doesn't have to happen that way. And looking around, this didn't come from this weekend. From a couple weekends back, I watched like 4 matches on NBCSN and NBC Gold and Around and Fox and all that, and all of them ended up being draws, ties. One of them was between 2 top-notch Premier League teams that were going to have an amazing time, and it was a derby and all this, and they both were quite content to go in and have a tie, right? This is something that happens a lot in soccer. I don't see it played for as much in women's soccer, hurrah for them, and not so much in American soccer. But in European soccer, where you're seeing incredibly capable players playing in incredibly good systems under amazingly good coaching, you see a lot of people playing for ties, right? And consequently, if you're a fan, you just got to accept the fact that your team's going to lose or tie the vast majority or the majority of the time. And so your team's not going to have a winning record. And the way I'm defining winning record is winning one more than half of your games, half your matches. So if you play 10 matches, winning 6. If you play 30 matches, winning 16. If you play 40 matches, winning 21, right? In most sports, this is the kind of thing you have to do to win through to the end. It's not in soccer. So let's go through this, and I'm going to show you this in different leagues because you should be skeptical about me saying this, because who would believe a sport would work that way? The USL, let's start with the USL, and this is going to be this season from the USL. Everything else is going to be last season because I couldn't get the statistics for this season yet for a lot of them, but or some of them are playing on like the Europe leagues. But the USL is done, and this is their season this year. Look here, this is the USL East. 94% of the teams in the USL East did not have winning records. Only one did. One team out of 15 had winning record, and that was Lou City, right? The other 14 did not. And keep in mind that 8 of these teams make the playoff. The top 8 teams make the playoff. So 94% didn't have a winning record in USL East. USL West is a little bit different. In USL West, 5 teams had winning records, which meant that 5 out of 15, 1/3 of them had winning records. 67% did not, right? This was the way it was, and 8 of these teams made the playoffs as well. So, but only 3 of them obviously made it without a winning record. This is the aberration in all of them. It does not have the you do not see that many winning teams in other leagues. And let me go on and show you this. Now, last year, of course, the only team in Tier 2, USL was Tier 2 this year. Last year, the only team in Tier 2 was the NASL. And the NASL last year had 1 team out of its 12 that had a winning record. That was the New York Cosmos. The other 11 teams did not have a winning record. 92% of their teams did not have a winning record, and that's that. Okay, so that's the lower tiers in American soccer. Of course, upper tiers has got to be different, right? No. MLS West last year had 1 team, FC Dallas, that had a winning record. That meant 90% of its teams did not, since there are 10 teams in a division or in MLS. So 1 team, and 90% did not have winning records. The MLS East, 100% of the teams did not have a winning record. That's right. Not a single team won 1 game more than half of its matches. Okay, so that's the United States, right? And obviously we are not the pinnacle of soccer. So let's look around a little bit further. If we go to La Liga, or Liga MX, I should say, which is the Mexican league, which is clearly tougher than what we're playing with here in the United States, you have 2 teams that ended up with winning records, and 89% of their teams did not. So 2 whole teams with winning records in Liga MX. So that's North America. And again, okay, even with Mexico thrown in, and as hard as Mexico plays and pushes in soccer, yeah, it's not Europe. So let's see what's over in Europe. Bundesliga. Well, the Bundesliga had 3 teams last year that had winning records out of 18. That's 83% of their teams not having winning records. La Liga, the Spanish league, they had 3 teams which had winning records out of 20 in their league. Basically, 80% of their teams did not have winning records. I'm sorry, they had 4 teams with winning records out of 20, which means that 80% of their league did not have winning records. Okay. The Premier League, which did the best of all the European leagues, it had 5 teams with winning records out of 20, which means that 75% of their teams did not have winning records. I mean, that's pretty clear across the board. If you go to a soccer match, pretty much anywhere, unless you're rooting for soccer's version of the Yankees, which every league has that, right? Well, not the Americans so much because it hasn't developed that far. But if you go, and you pretty much, more than even odds, your team's not going to win. You're either going to walk out with mixed feelings going, a tie, or you're going to walk out upset over a loss, or upset over a tie even. Rarely. I have seen 1 or 2 matches where a tie is really exciting when it's done in the 90th minute to keep your team even. But generally, a tie is meh at best. Maybe strategically good, but it's meh when you come to, for the fans. And the problem is that the solution to this is known, right? You don't have to live with this. This is just something that this is the way it's always been and this is the way it's always going to be situation. in soccer. United States, all of our leagues play to win. I think you can still technically tie in football if go like 2 extra days of playing and shoot each side's quarterback and do whatever. But basically, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, there ain't no ties, right? And hockey, which was the last one I think that really didn't have a tie fixing system, they've got it. They've got it works, right? And soccer could easily pick this up. Now I know soccer has its own system, right? Like watching the USL, 2 overtime period, 2 15-minute overtime periods, and then a shootout, right? Fine. And I think then a sudden death shootout if they both score the same in the first 5. Okay, that's fine, and they could do that. I actually like the way the NHL does it. The NHL does, if it's tied at the end of play, they give 1 point to the team that eventually loses, and they give the number of points to go to a winner to the winning team. So they play then, from that point on, when you've got it to in time and you're playing an extra half, quarter, whatever you want to call it, they could go and give the 1 point. They call it overtime loss point in NHL. You give 1 point to the team that ends up losing, and the other team gets 3. Right? If we were going to go with typical scoring for soccer, that would give a lot of incentive to play for a win in an overtime. And then, of course, you can do shootouts if you don't get past the overtimes, the 2 15-minute overtimes, without somebody coming up on top. This is a solution that would work really well, and I like the overtime loss point. But because then, some of the strategy that still exists of playing for that tie at the end of time, end of regular time, is still there. But there's also the play for the win. Afterwards, really strongly encouraged playing for the win, and of course a shootout if you can't play for the win until you get a winner. It makes a lot of sense and would solve a lot of problems. But of course, this is never going to happen. I, as an American, obviously have no credibility when I'm talking about soccer, as everyone I'm sure will say down in the comments. Don't understand the history and the way it's always been done, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, I get it. Sports Here did it too for a while until we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. And it's bad fan service when you do this, because a lot of times it will strategically make sense to play for the tie. And apparently a lot of times it will strategically make sense to play for the tie, since there's all sorts of teams that have a bunch of ties, and therefore their ties and their losses are equal to or more than their wins. A factor that's just really makes the sport less enjoyable. But of course, I realize this isn't going to change, because this is the way it's been, this is the way it is, this is the way it always will be. The really solid reasons that are usually given in sports for keeping bad rules. Okay, so that's it for today, folks. If you like this post, hit like. If you like what you're seeing around here generally, hit subscribe. And if you have anything to say and tell me how wrong I am or how right I am, do it down in the comments. I'll read them. I cannot guarantee you that I will write anything back, because I got a day job, folks. And with that, I got one last thing to tell you. Go watch some minor league sports, and I'll see you next time.